Hey everyone, this is Peter Bradley of Athena Gaia. Welcome to Monastiraki Athens. Monastiraki and the Plaka are the two really old sections of town where all the tourists come to. We're at the base of the Acropolis. Another thing that's here is this really wonderful, beautiful church. This is Metropolis. It's got fantastic mosaics on the outside, a wonderful bell tower. It's beautifully decorated on the inside. It's really a piece of art. However, it's not the piece of art that we're going to talk about today. The one we're going to talk about today is the little tiny one next door. So the little church was built in the 1300s. It was built during the Ottoman occupation. The Ottomans at various times were accepting of Christianity and people practicing their faith. This obviously would have been built during one of those times. The little churches like this, they kind of dot the countryside around Greece, and there's several of them right here in the Plaka and Monastiraki. They served two purposes. One was purely religious, of course, and the other was as something of a sanctuary, a bit of protection. Because the Ottomans wouldn't chase somebody into a church or interfere with what was going on inside of a church, you could go and find refuge there if you wanted to, if you were in trouble or running from the law or something like that, Ottoman law anyway. You could find that in a little church like this. So one of the first pieces of design, and there's lots of it on this building, is not actually on the building. It goes around the building, and it is this border area that we see. What we're looking at right now is what I call a meander. There's three types of meander. One is a Greek key, which is a very geometric design. Everybody knows about it. It's on floor mats everywhere. Another is an argonaut, is a set of waves that continue. And this is a rope design, as clearly done in mosaic. The commonality between the different kinds of meanders is that they're never ending. They usually form a linear path, and there's no end or beginning to it. It is meant to signify a lot of things, the eternal friendship of things. It could be protection. It could be a lot of things like life everlasting. Which is, a thought, that's derived from Christianity itself. But in this case, it's actually used as a border, and the legend has it, and depending on who you talk to, which taxi driver you talk to, this could have been the beginning of the church, and it could have represented a difference between, where the Ottomans wouldn't chase you, and where you were, in their territory. So it could have meant that, and it did mean that in some cases. Whether that was the case with this church or not, we actually don't know. But yeah, this is a meander. This is a type of meander, and we're going to get into that in another video later, because just the Greek key itself is so prevalent in Greek design that it warrants its own video. So moving on to the church itself, one of the first things you'll notice is this row of big blocks coming across the second level here. You'll see a lot of crosses on there. They're just everywhere across the front of this. There's multiple different kinds of crosses too, but you'll also see something that's a little bit more weird, I guess, for Christians. You'll see these mythic animals carved into these big blocks, and there's, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4 big ones across the front of the church. These, your mind tells you, this is a church, these are crosses, so these other symbols, they must have something to do with early Christianity, right? No, far from it. These big blocks with the mythic animals on them, they're actually spolia. So a spolia is kind of like, well, it comes from the word spoils, like the spoils of war. It's something that was taken from somewhere else, is what it strictly means. And these blocks didn't start out here, and they weren't carved for this building. These blocks were pulled from the Acropolis, just up the hill here. We don't know for sure if they were pulled from the Parthenon or some other building there. It's probably some other building. But yeah, that's what these have nothing to do with Christianity. In fact, they're probably a little bit on the pagan side. They've got these mythical animals with wings. They've got griffins. They got some dragons. They got crazy lions with wings, and those are really, that's the foundation of the Jerocristo design catalog that we see today. So one of the most interesting spolia on this church, for me anyway, is this one right here. What you'll notice in the middle is a cross. But is it a cross? That's the question. Because this spolia is the same size as several other going down the side of this church and on the other. And I don't really know where it came from, and an art history or archaeological professor might be able to help me. But that cross on that spolia with those designs around it may or may not be a Christian cross. Pythagoras, who's a mathematician and astronomer being the key thing here, he started his own religion, kind of like based on math and logic, back on the island of Samos, hundreds and hundreds of years before Christianity. And that symbol is the one that he adopted to represent his religion. And what it really meant was that, you know, this thought and this kind of faith that he had stretched in each direction indefinitely. But that one to me is always interesting because symbols get invented at sometimes and then they morph in their meaning over time. And they get adopted to kind of like, I don't know, to mean new things. The cross is a symbol just like that. A cross like that came from Pythagoras before Christianity, and that's still the Eastern cross that we see used by the Greeks today. And we have a lot of crosses in our store that are equal-sided on all sides. But those aren't necessarily meant to depict the crucifix. You know, the Latin Church in on the Western Europe it has a longer stem at the bottom, and that obviously is meant to depict the crucifix, where Jesus was sacrificed. So one of the first pieces that I noticed on this church that just screamed Jerocristo to me is the one at the top to the left of the windows. That design we call garden trellis. It shows up on rings and bracelets and cufflinks and all kinds of other places. It's part of a collection called the Monastiraki collection for Jerocristo. It's featured on their page in our store. And it's named for this area of town that we're in, Monastiraki. But specifically, it's a collection that features the designs from this little church. The garden trellis, it's complex. It's a beautiful design, but it's also it kind of shows an evolution in the design thinking of Jerocristo. Okay, so what he started to do was to take two pieces of silver, one on the back, one on the front. And there is silver around the outside too. Everything is etched beautifully, but the front side of the back is blackened with oxidization. And the front piece of silver has that design work, but it's perforated so that you can see through. The effect of that ultimately is very similar to the effect one gets when walking through an open door in a place like this. If the sunlight's beating down on the outside of this building, then and it's dark inside, then when you walk through, you visually you disappear. And it's kind of like the mystery of faith. And the trust that you have that walking through, even though if you don't see what's on the other side, it's worth the journey. That's what that motif and that style of jewelry that Jerocristo came up with really tends to evoke. This is, by the way, this is the second time we've done this video, and it's the first time we got things not wrong, but maybe slightly misinterpreted, and we also just didn't know enough at that time about the church. And we're coming back and doing a second video because we've learned more about the spolia and what they're all about. So we wanted to, add that to the story. This guy right here has a big hole in it that comes through the other side. And was it, why? Where did that come from? Was it an anchor, or was that used to tie a rope through? We don't know. And these blocks are meant for a much bigger building than this. So there's just a lot of mystery to this building, and it's just fun to look at and try to figure it out. You'll notice that the meander. This is what makes us think that it's like a protective border or like a territory marker almost. Goes all the way around. We're on the back side of the building now. We have more Christo designs up here. So on the what I guess is the north wall, more or less, the final wall we'll cover. It starts out with this guy right here, which on a church that says I'm Jesus and I've got two crosses surrounding me. But the fact that the spolia on this building are so prevalent, and it's roughly the same size block as you see in other places that don't contain Jesus or have anything to do with that period of time. That makes you kind of wonder. But those are crosses, huh? Is that Jesus? Maybe. It's a guy with a beard. I don't know that it's Christian per se, but it looks like it. But why are there two crosses? Next to it, you get, in my mind, is the front of a door, but it's cut off. Obviously, the whole thing isn't there. Whatever it was has been chopped down to be able to fit into this space. So they just took an incredible piece of art from ancient Greece. They just chopped it in because they needed a block. These guys right here are obviously they're two amphora. Now they got symbols on the front of them that I don't know what those symbols are. They could be like property symbols, like a brand that you put on cattle. You have a symbol that goes on things that means that's yours. They kind of look like they could be older windmills, but that doesn't help at all. And they also look like they're on an aspis, which is the ancient shield that the Spartans used. The hoplites in general, just the Spartans. But here we see just a plethora of other like cross symbols going across the top. Yeah, and there's just no saying if those were actually meant to be crosses or when they were carved. The stone that they're on is obviously a different color. It's not Pendelic marble like the amphora are, or like that one, the Jesus that we don't know is Jesus. Those are marbles from Mount Pendeli, and that's the material that was used to build many of the buildings on the Acropolis. So was that guy right up there? It might have been actual crosses because it's not on Pendelic marble. It's not from that same material that was used at that time. This guy here, I didn't notice this till later. Christo came out with a locket design. You can look at it in our store. It's the barrel locket, and the outside of that is decorated with this motif that comes right down here, which is it could be seen as a meander because it is meant to be a never-ending kind of design, and it does go around a door as a borderish kind of thing. But it's much more complicated and beautiful than a regular rope or a Greek key. I'll also point out this last spolia here. This is what we've come to call garden gates. It's another very popular design, sort of like garden trellis. There's garden trellis and garden gates. They're like two of the more popular designs from the Monastiraki collection. One interesting thing is the number of rosettes and circular floral designs that you'll see around the church. This cross right here, for instance, has two of them, upper left and upper right, and they're two totally different kind of rosettes, but you can find those in our store on various pieces. Especially the one on the left is used in that's used in a Kazupis piece. And the one on the right, I believe, is used in an Alloro piece. There's, to the right of the windows, we have what basically amounts to an Alloro cross. We have something very similar to that in the store. It's two-toned. Wonderfully done in 14-karat gold. When you see something like this, it just makes your mind drift away because there's so many stories on this. There's two long pieces of marble right here that depict a lot of people like walking around doing things. They're on horseback. It looks like there's a shepherd there of some kind. He's got the big stick. I can't see there's somebody with a big jug of water or wine on their head. And there's symbols there carved into those places. So I guess if you were an archaeologist, you could probably try to figure out what those people were doing. Then you might know when that's from. And then that symbol might make more sense. What's funny is that there's three things there that look like Maltese crosses that do not exist over here on this one. So it kind of makes you think although they must have come from the same place because everything else about it is similar, the way it's done. There's another spolia. This is a traffic light from Cincinnati. So another thing that's interesting about the building is that there's different kinds of stones being used. Now, if you had a geologist in your family, which we do, then maybe you could ask them to look at these photos and the stones and the different carvings and give an idea as to what the different stones actually are. You might think that I would have done that, but I didn't. So there will be videos that follow us up that hopefully help us understand the building a little bit better. One thing that I think is really, really cool about this building is the knowledge that you're touching, part of the Acropolis, really. They're touching stones and carvings that are truly, truly ancient, and just, you had no idea, like, when you're touching something like this, how old that might have been, but you can feel the chisel strokes in there, and when you realize those chisels were at work, 2,500 years ago, that's pretty cool. Feels like you're shaking the hand of a craftsman from a very, very long time ago in a different part of history.